hear us now. Good morning, Charles, and welcome to the studio. Charles, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Adora. How are you today? Good morning, Colin.
Okay, we are very fine, thank you. And I just hope you are very fine as well, because from the problem we are seeing in the PDP, it will seem like members of the PDP are not finding it funny at all this time around.
Well, your voice is quite low, but I could hear you referring to the challenges in our party.
Yes, please.
And of course, you know that shortly after the presidential election, which of course, you know, we are challenging in court, there have been a whole lot of issues ranging from the position of the G-5, which of course, it did not pan out well even before the election. But I can speak directly to a number of these issues vis-a-vis the provision of the constitution of the party as amended in 2017. You know, it is very easy sometimes to copy, but much more difficult to paste. And so some of these persons in Benue, of course, fired by the position of Yeson Wiki of Rivers, tried to copy what happened to Adam Soshomole in the APC, where from his ward right there from in Esaku suspended him. And at the end of the day, that cost him his position as the national chairman of the party. But they fail to realize that these two parties are operating two different constitutions. If you look at Section 57, subsection 7 of the PDP constitution, it is very, very clear on the issue of who has the power to suspend or discipline a member of the National Working Committee of the party or a member of the NEC, including, of course, deputy governors who may not be a member of the NEC but are also covered by that section of the constitution. And so when they proceeded to ask the ward of the national chairman to go ahead and take disciplinary action against him, even if they were supposed to, assuming that they have the powers, they were supposed to first of all give him opportunity for fair hearing, you summon him, you give him the opportunity to defend himself. But that section 57 did not even give them that power to carry out such action against a member of the National Working Committee. And so anybody who is now dependent on that position of the national chairman's ward and then proceeding to court is just part of the many troubles that some of our leaders are trying to take this country through. It might be easy for my colleagues in the media or any other person to begin to see these issues as isolated or as a PDP issue. I want to differ from that. We must begin to realize that for us to make progress in our democratic journey, we will need to begin to look at issues beyond how it affects political parties, because once it touches the political party, you must look at the ripple effect of such action on that political party on our democratic journey and indeed the unity of this country and the progress that we tend to make as we continue to forge ahead with our democratic practice. And so when individuals proceed outside the laws, whether that of the political party or that of the constitution, you begin to wonder what is wrong and how that helps us. Secondly, if an individual also proceeds to the court of law and then decide to seek an ex parte order to prevent somebody from carrying out an action, you begin to also ask, at what time do you seek an ex parte order? Do you need to, are you not supposed to place somebody on notice when there is no urgency on the issue? Do you just go and procure an order from a court because some judges are possibly pliable, and then you begin to use that to disturb the peace of the land? And individuals begin to think that it's only about the party. It's most unfortunate that those persons who have benefited from the party, particularly members of the G5, will continue to toe this path because of their own selfish desires and thinking that they are champions. I'm not too sure history is going to be very kind to them by the time we begin to document the history of this democratic journey. So, Adora and my sister and colleague, I will want the media to begin to look at these issues based on the position of the PDP constitution and also how it affects us as a people, rather than just looking at it as just a PDP issue.
Okay, let's also look at shaping the narrative, especially with PDP as a strong opposition, you know, vis-a-vis.
Your audio is quite low. I can't hear you.
I said let's also look at the narrative of PDP as an opposition to APC and the alternative party, even though there has been arguable
conversation that Labour seems to be taking that toga if PDP does not put its house in order. Questions have come up on the reason why Ayu should at this time be suspending members of the party who ab initio played roles in the party to see that PDP keeps its house in order, such as Ayodele Fayose, Pius Ayim, former Senate President, and also bringing to the disciplinary committee Otom forward. How do you review that? Is it a bad timing, or was it necessary?
Well, I heard you talking about the issue of suspension of some members of the party. Much as it is within the powers of the National Executive Committee, National Working Committee to take that action, personally, I don't think this would have been the right time to proceed along that line. This is a party that is still involved in an electioneering process. Of course, you know that there are some states like Kebbi and Damawa where the electoral process is not yet done with. And even those areas where the election may have been concluded, the judicial process is still part of the electioneering process. Yes. So you require a whole lot. By the time you proceed to court, you are going to be requiring individuals to come forward to stand as witness, to provide a number of other materials you need to prosecute your case. So I think the party was hasty in trying to suspend individuals that progressed in error in their own thinking in the course of this election. One would have expected that we first of all concern ourselves with how to recover our stolen mandate that we thought rightly should have been given to the PDP based on what we saw on ground. But the party progressed along that line. I just do hope that the Board of Trustees need to also come in to begin to look at these issues, that because since these other persons that have been suspended did not outrightly defect to another political party, it would have been better to also see how they can take advantage of certain mechanisms within the party. But you know, the major challenge is that some of them would not also want to subject themselves to the national chairman sitting as a judge or a jury in issues that affect them. And this would have been also the time for us to begin to think of who can make sacrifice, including the national chairman, for us to indeed ensure that the party remains intact in dealing with a number of these issues. I've also listened to some analysis earlier in the day of some of my colleagues saying that this may be the end of the party. That is being very, very naive about political development. ABGA is a political party that for a very long time have one state. ABGA is still waxing strong and doing well with even that one state. And so a party that has more than 10, 11 states, and we are saying because certain things didn't go its way. I don't want Nigerians to always change position because somebody is said to have lost election or have won election. It's like in the game of football. When a man plays a particular shot from the center of the field and he hits the bar or did not score the goal, everybody will begin to blame him. Why did you not pass the ball to another person? Why did you not see the other person who is closer to the goalpost? But if he decides to shoot the ball from the center of the field and eventually he scores, they will begin to praise him that the shot is hot, that the man is an international player. And they begin to give him all sorts of names. Some person will say, what a hat trick. So that is the way it is. Once you lose an election, analysts begin to now show that they are very intelligent on a number of issues, including the ones that are not seized of the factors. I am quite confident that the PDP will come out stronger after all these ripples, and that the leaders of the party again will explore certain mechanisms very well enshrined in the constitution of the party to address with these many issues, even as we continue to seek judicial process to recover our mandate that we believe was controversially given to the APC.
Charles, how does one define anti-party activities? Because again, you see some of the accusations, leveled against Ayu was that he was not present at the gubernatorial election and the state assembly election. And whereas you've also said,
I can't hear you.
I said, how does one define anti-party activities? Because if
you mean how we can define anti-party?
Yes.
Well, the laws of the party is very, very clear. The issue is as to what time to define it and when. Sometimes you look at the convenience. For instance, if somebody decides to begin to campaign for another party, like Wike did in Rivers, you don't need a soothsayer to know that that is an anti-party action. If somebody proceeds to Lagos and endorse a candidate of another political party different from the candidate of his party, you don't need anybody to tell that is anti-party. If you lose election in your unit or in your ward, that does not constitute anti-party, because there could be a whole lot of other forces that may have led to you not winning in your unit or in your ward. For instance, if you have a candidate from your unit that is strong, or because of certain sentiments, the other political party where you have that candidate now sentimentally, like we do here, to say, no, it's our brother, let's support our brother. And because of that, you are not able to win. That cannot be said to anti-party. You recall in 1999, Olusegun Obasanjo lost the entirety of the Southwest. 6 states of the Southwest, he did not win in any of them. But that didn't stop him from winning the election to become the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And nobody asked him to step down because he did not win the Southwest. So you cannot say that because somebody lost election in his unit or his ward, and as such you begin to accuse him of anti-party. Anti-party is when you work against the interest of the party by supporting candidates that are not nominees of the party or candidates of the party, or by taking other actions that are inimical to the success of the party. And it is a very clear thing. Sometimes it happens, but because you look at other possible actions that suspending such person may trigger, you tarry a while. But one would have expected that the party at this time needed to retreat, have a tactical withdrawal for the purpose of advancing strategically, as is done in the military circle, rather than immediately wanting to kill these flies with a sledgehammer. I do hope that in the midst of all these troubles, that the leadership of the party will take a second reasoning on these issues with a view to resolving them and allowing the party to forge ahead.
All right, Charles, let's get back to how we got to this point with the PDP. The G5 governors at the time were asking that zoning principle of the party should be upheld. And many also at that time called for the resignation of Ayu, or even for him to step aside to ensure that the crisis in the party, that the party goes into the election as one family. But we can see what is happening now. Even the winnability that the PDP, punctured at the time as to why it took a step, the step it took, didn't seem quite to have worked out, even though the election is still being contested. So at this point, do you think this suspension and of course the court ruling against Ayu is something that Ayu brought to himself, and something that should happen at this time? Ayu stepping aside so that the party can get itself back, or is bearing back?
Now, let me come out very clear on this issue of zoning. There have been a whole lot of misinterpretation of the position of the PDP constitution with respect to zoning. And I've seen a number of persons, including some of my colleagues that you had this morning, still saying that the PDP went against the zoning principle. That's not true. Zoning is a political party decision. It's not a national decision. There could be a national sentiment around it, which is quite understandable. And secondly, let me also say the record straight. When the governors of the South converged on Asaba, zoning was not the issue of deliberation. What they deliberated was the issue of open grazing, how to ban open grazing. It was in Lagos that the issue of zoning became an addendum and was discussed. So those who keep talking about Asaba, governors converging on Asaba, they should go back and Google the report of the meeting of governors in Asaba. When they met, it was with respect to issue of banning open grazing. At no time did anybody discuss wet power shift in Asaba. It was when they now met in Lagos subsequently that became an addendum. It wasn't even part of the agenda that it was discussed. So I needed to set that record straight with respect to where it was discussed. Now, coming to the question you asked, the PDP constitution is different from the APC constitution. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, our former president, was the last president of the PDP. And Muhammadu Buhari, who is the president of our country today, is of the APC. Except those who are talking about this zoning, that PDP going against zoning, is wanting the PDP to operate based on the constitution of the APC and not on the constitution of the PDP. The constitution of the PDP says there shall be zoning of offices, not zoning of contest, zoning of offices. Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate of the PDP and my principal, is running to become the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I use the word is because we are still in court, so I cannot apply the word was. And That is not an office. And as you can see now, with this temporary setback of the declaration of the APC, would you have now asked that the chairman you wanted to move to the south to return to the north? So when people talk about this zoning, go and look at the PDP constitution. The last president of the PDP extraction, Goodluck Jonathan, was from the south. So if it happened that in 2019, Muhammadu Buhari, having run for 1 year, the members of the PDP agreed that power needed to be in the north. Let us assume Atiku won in 2019. Would anybody have asked him not to run in 2021 when the constitution strictly guarantees him 2 terms in office, so long as Nigerians allow that? So the PDP did not go against its own zoning. You could say that it was against national sentiments that power needed to return to the south. That is different from the constitution of the PDP. And so those who are saying that the party went against its own zoning are not saying the truth. Now let me take you back to 2006 when Ahmadu Ali was the chairman of the PDP. When eventually Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, blessed memory, emerged, Ahmadu Ali campaigned for Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, both of them from the north. It was after Umaru Musa Yar'Adua won the election and became the president that Ahmadu Ali had to step down for the chairmanship to return to the south. In the PDP, there are 6 positions that are zoned along the lines of the 6 geopolitical zones, which is not what it is in APC. Because you can see in APC, even the vice president and the speaker are from the same state. But in the case of the PDP, the president must come from a particular geopolitical zone, the vice president from a particular geopolitical zone, the national chairman from a particular geopolitical zone, the speaker from a particular geopolitical zone, the senate president from a particular geopolitical zone, and then the secretary to the government of the federation, making the 6th. And do know that as we speak today, the only position that is substantive in the PDP is that of the national chairman, because the other 6 positions are non-existent since we are not yet in power. We don't have a president, we don't have a vice president, we don't have a senate president, we don't have a speaker, neither do we have a national secretary to the government of the federation. So please, my colleagues in the media, when you discuss this zoning, look at the PDP constitution. Let us not make mistake of looking at zoning as if it's a Nigerian constitutional arrangement. It is nationally sentimental for people to say that power should be rotated from the north to the south, and I don't have any problem with that. But once you want to refer to what is enshrined in the constitution of a political party, you must treat these political parties as different entities. APC, PDP, ABGA, Labour Party have different constitutions. So when you want to judge the actions in the PDP, don't judge them from the prism of the selfish interest of Wike, who is making it look as if anybody has gone against the constitution of the party. Look at it from what is enshrined in the constitution of the party. And so to that extent, nothing was done to offend the constitution of the PDP. And I stand to be corrected. Let anybody show me that section of the PDP constitution that says that you are going to be zoning contest rather than zoning offices.
All right, Charles, as people are holding the INEC chairman, on his words now, which he said repeatedly about ensuring that there will be transmission of results after election real time, from the polling units, which didn't happen, and that has caused a lot of problem in the polity at the moment. That was exactly how we also heard the national chairman of your party talk about if your primary is thrown open and a northerner emerges as the candidate, that he would likely step down for that person. But that didn't happen again, and that is part of the issues that Wike and his group are raising on a daily basis, that they are fighting him now. Even Wike is also saying that the war has just started with what has just happened from the court in Benue State.
The position of the INEC chairman is backed by the Electoral Act as amended. It's not just his own opinion. That the reason why we celebrated the signing into law of the present Electoral Act is because it guarantees electronic transmission of results. That is very, very well written in that constitution. So it's not in that particular Electoral Act. So it's not an optional thing. That's one. Secondly, the national chairman of INEC consistently made it clear that they will adhere strictly to those guidelines. They were guidelines. They were also laws very well written in the INEC the Electoral Act. So they are not just his opinion. We are not dealing with an individual opinion. Thirdly, IU says he will step down if a president emerged from the north. As we speak, a president of the PDP has not emerged from the north. Don't forget, I have made this explanation before now, that even if IU steps down, by the provision of the constitution of the PDP, the next in line is also from the north, Damagun. Are you also going to ask Damagun to say, since IU say he will step down, that Damagun should also step down? The national secretary, by the zoning of the PDP constitution, the chairman comes from the same area that the deputy national chairman one comes from. The reason was because if anything happens to the national chairman, in order not to order that zoning, that the person who also occupies that position is from the same zone, the same region, geopolitical region, not a zone now. In which case, it could be from northwest or from northeast, as in Damagu coming from northeast. Now, the national secretary usually comes from the opposite direction. As we have it today in the PDP, the national secretary of the PDP is Aniagwu from Imo State, as is in the southeast. So any attempt to want to move the chairman without having a proper change in the ESCO, which will only come through a dissolution of that ESCO at a national convention, cannot work, because except you're also going to ask Aniagwu to also just step aside. Because the national chairman, if you move it to the south, in the event that even Damagun agrees that he too will step down, you will now need to also ask Aniagwu to also step down as well. And when that happens, you are going to have a much more disturbance in the party than you can imagine. So let's not just look at it from points of sentiments. Let's look at the laws of the party. It may sound sweet and nice to the ears because Nyesom Wike has been able to deploy the funds of Rivers to every day go on live coverage to begin to talk about things that are not real. Go and read this, the PDP constitution as amended 2017. I have gone through it, and I can tell you none of the provisions support what Nyesom Wike is saying. Ask him which part of this constitution supports what he's saying, particularly with respect to zoning. Yeah, we're not talking about sentiments. We're talking about what is in the laws of the PDP. Sentimentally, I would prefer, possibly, that the president come from the south. But if you ask me, it doesn't matter where the president comes from. Let the president work for everybody. If the president likes, for me, my own thinking, let it even come from Niger Republic. But let my country work, than for me to have a brother who is the president and I cannot have a 3 square meal. This sentiment that the political class continue to use and make it look that life will be better for you when your brother is in power, rather than what your brother does with power. I have given an example, Adora and Nicolin, that when you fly a plane, when you are in the aircraft and you sit down, particularly international flight, you eat all sorts of food, you drink all sorts of wine, you don't even care who is flying you. But because you have the confidence that he's taking you to your destination, in the midst of that risk, which is even more riskier than the job of a president, because he takes you to a place where you don't have a choice. If a president is doing anyhow, you can see the Jabba syndrome. People can afford to jet out and then decide to seek asylum.
Okay.
When you are in the plane, 37 feet above sea level, you cannot even jump anywhere. So that's the more reason why we should look for a president that will govern for life to be better for us, rather than these sentiments of where the president comes from.
Okay, before we take flight of any plane, Charles, now let us try to categorize political strength. And I raise this because of the conversation raised by several quarters in terms of IU's participation at his polling units, where it is adjudged that he did not win his polling unit, he did not win his local government, and he also lost the state as the party chairman and as someone who is also from that same state, which is Benue State. And I did remember that there were several calls by the candidate of the PDP, by His Excellency Atiku Abubakar, that, you know, delivering polling units, people going back to the local government to work for the PDP was essential for the winning of this election. The failure to win polling units, the failure to win as a party chairman, isn't it also instructive to define political strength and perhaps his dexterity as the chairman?
Anybody who progresses along that line will not be very, very factual. Is it true that Nyesom Wike actually won Rivers with all the bragging that he did? Didn't you hear the stories of how many people's lives were sacrificed for this so-called victory that he got in Rivers? With all the boasting and everything, why didn't he just sit down and allow proper election to hold in Rivers for you to know whether he's actually in charge? Now, Otom is the governor of the 3 senatorial districts in Benue. He contested for only 1 and he lost. Would you not just say that that is also equivalent to his strength? Politics and the reason why people return to the polls is to allow the electorate make their choice. That sometimes the electorate didn't choose you doesn't mean that you are weak. It could be because of the sentiments of the electorates at that time. For instance, here in Delta, you could see the governorship result. How do you compare it with what happened with the presidential? The sentiments are different. So when you come and say because a man didn't win his ward, and that means it's not relevant. I gave you an example of Obasanjo in 1999. He did not win any of the states in the Southwest. Tinubu lost Lagos to Peter Obi. Will you now say that because of that, Peter Obi has become stronger than Tinubu, who is now the president-elect? The sentiments are usually different. And in any case, even if you want to judge somebody based on where he won or where he lost, you need to also have time to examine the circumstances surrounding the failure or otherwise of anybody in an election. Or Tom possibly could have also deployed funds to embarrass Yocha Ayu because of the position they had and they still hold as members of the G-5. That's a possibility. But that is only something you can come to a conclusion when you must have been able to carry out a holistic research or possibly a review of what transpired. So anybody saying because the national chairman did not win his ward, I have gone through the constitution of the PDP. I didn't see that as a criteria that you must first of all win your ward before you become national chairman. I recall Ali Modu Sharif. He came from the APP and then AMPP. And I don't know how many wards he has won for the PDP before he became the acting national chairman of the party. So it's not a criteria that you must first of all win your ward, win your state before you become a national chairman. You could have a national chairman from a state where you even have another governor. That has happened in the past. And so anybody brandishing that because the national chairman did not win his ward is just looking for one straw to hold.
Okay,
all right,
colleague, before you go on. Charles, I'm asking this because, you know, when you listen to Nyesom Wike and what he has said, one of the things he came out to say was that anybody supporting or trying to, you know, defend the suspension of the party chairman would have himself to blame. He said, in fact, that he has nothing else to do now than to make sure that he puts heat on the heels of the party. Now, will PDP allow Nyesom Wike within the party to disrupt the peace and the harmony of the PDP when we are set to see that they are on their way to court?
In about 2.5 months, Nyesom Wike will no longer be a governor. Then that time, reality will dawn on him that he will stop listening to himself and then also have an idea of what members of the public think about him. This is not that time. He will not have the opportunity to be singing Iyendeba. He will realize that absolute power corrupts absolutely and that he has enjoyed that absolutism in power. And so by the time he leaves, we'll be able to know how strong he will be. I don't like discussing him because he has shown that he does not even value those who assisted him to climb. You recall that Rotimi Amechi, beyond being Nyesom Wike's boss, had to bend backwards to impress it upon Goodluck Ebele Jonathan to appoint Nyesom Wike as a minister in the cabinet. At that time, I had the privilege of covering the Nigerian Senate. The Senate had already cleared a candidate from Rivers as a ministerial minister designate, waiting to be sworn in by the president. But Rotimi Amechi fought hard, and that was how that particular nominee that was already cleared by the Senate was withdrawn. And then Nyesom Wike was brought forward. How is he treating Rotimi Amechi today? He sings with the man. He carries out live coverages only to insult him. He says everything against him. And so, for me, I don't take him seriously. I thought that the level he has gotten to, having been a former minister and now a governor, that he should have been able to learn that there is a class that leaders belong, and that leaders don't behave the way he's behaving. And so whenever his name pops up in any discussion, if it were not to be on a live program, I'll ask you to please push that aside. I like discussing individuals who display integrity at all times. To the best of my knowledge, integrity is far from him. And so please don't use him as an example when we are discussing issues that are very, very serious. Perhaps when he leaves power, we will know how much power that he will have again. And so, for me, we can discuss many other issues and not the dancing Iyendeba governor who does not even understand that there are characteristics of persons who are supposed to occupy the office of a governor.
And many still wonder why, the PDP had not considered even suspending Wike with all the, issues that we're having with, that the party is having with him. And then quickly talk on this as well, the suspension of Ayu and the court order that he should stop parading himself as the national chairman of the party. Okay, the suspension of Ayu and the court order that he should stop parading himself as the national chairman of the party, as it is now, still stands. How is the party going to deal with this issue going forward to ensure peace returns?
Well, I only heard you mention the national chairman, Ayu. I wouldn't know what you...
Okay.
You want him to do, whether to step aside or whether to... I wouldn't know what...
No, okay, Charles, we do know there's a court order already asking him to stop parading himself as the national chairman of the party, right?
Yeah, yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, and as a court order, it has to be obeyed, right?
Yes, he has to. Yeah, you can obey while you challenge it.
Okay, so why he challenge...
Even if that court order looks like what Adams Oshomole calls a Jankara injunction.
Okay, but going forward, there shouldn't be a vacuum now in the party. So how does the party intend to continue?
The law is very, very clear. In the absence of the national chairman, we have a deputy national chairman, one, who is Damagu.
Okay, he steps in now.
That is what's supposed to be. But why the national chairman and the party can proceed to challenge that particular judgment. I have said that ordinarily, there is no reason, if we want to grow our democracy and our constitutionalism, for anybody to seek an ex parte order for the purpose of achieving this particular goal, because there is nothing that is going to die. You go for an ex parte order when something is to be destroyed, so that you do not destroy the rest. But in this case, I don't know what is so far that anybody is looking for an ex parte order if it's not like what Oshomole calls a Jankara injunction. And that is the most unfortunate thing. We keep blaming our men in the temple of justice, but the political class continue to undermine their integrity by compromising them. You could see that kind of ex parte judgment or injunction must have been as a result of certain inducement. Otherwise, why didn't they place him on notice so that he can also come and bring forward why he should still remain as the national chairman? And you are relying on a suspension that even by the law of the PDP should not even take place in the first place. I have quoted section 57, subsection 7 of the PDP constitution as amended in 2011 that have taken away that kind of power from any of the units, either at the state level, the local government level, or even at the world level. You cannot just copy wrongly and then also paste wrongly. They are just trying to copy what happened to Adams Oshomole in the APC. The PDP have guarded against that by the introduction of section 57, subsection 7 of the 2017 constitution of the PDP. So the 2017 constitution have cured that particular sickness. So why will a court rely on something like it is said that you cannot build something on nothing and expect it to stand? A court that should have been able to look whether what they are bringing is standing on anything will now proceed to give a judgment or an injunction based on what is not standing on anything. You will know that that is not actually somebody who is trying to dispense justice.
Charles, now Ayu will be battling to retain his position as the chairman of the party when the party itself is also pursuing, the presidential election at the court. So one would be wondering, how does this help the party unite, actually to reclaim the mandate that he says it got during the presidential election when his house is also in disarray?
Well, you must understand that politics generally is a concentric circle of conspirators, where the conspirators come together and conspire, and at the end of the day, the greater conspirators possibly will have the day. But in the midst of all this, I expect the BOT of the party, the presidential candidate of the party, who today is the leader of the party, to be able to also come forward and then begin to find solutions as to how we can unite. I do not personally support any suspension or expulsion of anybody from the party at this moment, because we need the numbers. Politics is a game of numbers. The election have come, though has not gone, because we are still challenging its outcome. But we do need to begin to build the party so that in the event that by the grace of God we are able to recover our mandate, or that the judiciary takes steps to possibly return us to the field, that we'll have more armies to join us in going to that field. But in the event that it happens that nothing comes our way, 2027 is also very, very close for us to also begin to seek how we can come together for the purpose of rescuing our country, not just rescuing our party. We are quite convinced that APC does not have what it takes to be able to bring our country back to winning ways. You can hear the utterances of those who they claim have won the election, still talking more divisively rather than uniting us as a people. So I do hope that our party will take advantage of where we are now to unite more rather than these troubles that we are going through.
So there is not a chance that the PDP will go absolute, like some people have argued, because they seem to think that with the rising popularity of Labour Party, that it is a force to reckon with, and that PDP needs to do more to put its house together. So we're not seeing that anytime soon.
It will be a wrong analysis for anybody to think that Labour Party is rising. It's the obedience that rules. And you could see what happened with respect to the sharp decline from the presidential to the governorship. The only thing that can even keep Labour Party alive is if Obi himself remains steadfast. So the obedient movement will become the life wire and then be able to provide the necessary blood that will flow through the arteries of the party. Otherwise, it will just begin to function as vein that only returns blood and does not pump out blood. And so those who are hoping that Labour Party has become a new champion, we need to tarry a while and see whether indeed the obedience will see the reason to follow. If P2B today moves to another political party, you will see that shift. So let's not begin to praise the Labour Party as if they are the new bride in town. It's the obedience and Obi himself that you could give that credit to. When you overcredit the Labour Party, that would diminish the very importance and what the life wire that Obi has brought into that party.
All right, Charles, we just have to leave it here. Thank you so much for your time. Charles Aniagwu is the spokesperson, PDP Presidential Campaign Council. He's joined us to evaluate the new agenda of G governors against the PDP and how to put the party back